All right, let's dive into something really interesting today.
Okay.
Deuterium depleted water. Ever heard of it?
Yeah, definitely.
I'm not even sure I could say it properly. But anyway, apparently, it might have some pretty incredible effects on our health.
Yeah, it really might.
We're talking longevity, fertility, even disease resistance.
Right.
But before we get ahead of ourselves,
Yeah,
we need to understand what it even is.
definitely.
So,
Yeah.
what exactly is deuterium depleted water?
Well, it's basically water, but with, get this, a lower concentration of deuterium.
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 Okay, what's that?
Well, you've heard of isotopes, right?
Sure, different versions of the same element, right?
Right. Exactly.
Like carbon dating and stuff.
Exactly. So deuterium, it's like hydrogen's heavier cousin, I guess you could say.
Oh,
It's got an extra neutron in its nucleus, making it, well, heavier.
so it's like hydrogen but bulkier.
Yeah, you could say that.
Okay, and why does that matter for water?
Well, even though it's just a tiny difference, that extra neutron really changes how water acts in our bodies, biologically speaking.
Interesting.
Yeah, it slows down all the chemical reactions,
Wow.
which can mess with all sorts of things in our cells.
Like what?
Everything from how our cells make energy to how our DNA replicates.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah,
So our bodies are like finicky machines and heavy water is like throwing a wrench in there.
that's a great analogy. Exactly.
So that's where this deuterium depleted water comes in, the DDW.
Right.
It's like taking the wrench out and letting things run smoothly.
Yeah, you could say that.
This is fascinating. So by just changing the water we drink,
Mm-hmm.
we'd be like optimizing our health.
Yeah, potentially. That's what the research is suggesting.
Okay, so let's talk about that research.
Sure.
What have scientists actually found?
Well, there was this study back in the 1960s
Okay.
where they gave mice deuterium depleted water, and guess what?
What?
They lived way longer than the mice who drank regular water. Yeah, it was pretty amazing.
Wow.
And it wasn't just about living longer either.
Mm.
The male mice, they were, more active, let's say, sexually.
No kidding. They were measuring that.
They were. And the female mice, they had bigger litters, too.
Wow. So not only living longer, but also more frisky.
Exact.
Fascinating. So this DDW stuff, it's like a fountain of youth for mice.
Well, sort of, yeah.
Incredible.
But it's not just mice.
Oh.
They did some experiments with plants, too.
Like what?
Barley and wheat and the plants grown from seeds soaked in deuterium-depleted water, they were much bigger and produced way more.
No way.
Yeah, and they used snow water for that, which naturally has less deuterium.
Wait, so melted snow is like magic water.
Kind of.
This is getting more and more interesting.
Is right. There was another study with this algae called chlorella, and it grew so much faster in the snow water.
Wow.
But here's the thing, when they added deuterium back to the regular water to match the snow water, the algae grew just the same as before.
Wow. So it really was the lower deuterium making the difference.
Exactly. Pretty convincing, right?
Yeah, totally. This is all super exciting, but how does it actually work?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're still figuring that out, but there are some really interesting theories out there.
Like what?
Well, one idea is that it has to do with how deuterium affects the structure of water, like at a molecular level.
Okay.
You know how snow forms?
Sort of. Water freezes and falls from the sky.
Right, but the thing is, the water molecules without deuterium, they tend to form structures first.
Hmm.
It's like nature has this built-in system that prioritizes this purity at a molecular level.
Interesting. So like the deuterium-free water is more organized.
Exactly. It's fascinating, right?
Yeah. So maybe that's why soaking those seeds in BDW had such a big impact.
Right. Maybe it's like giving them a head start with these perfectly aligned building blocks.
I see. So it's not just about the water itself, but also how it affects the structure of everything else.
Right, exactly.
Wow, this is mind-blowing. Are there other examples of how this purity thing might matter?
Yeah, actually, there's this study on egg cells in mice, and they found that heavy water actually caused them to die.
Oh, wow.
But DDW, it actually stimulated the egg cells to grow.
Huh. So heavy water is like bad for baby making.
Well, in that study, at least, yeah.
And DDW is like a fertility booster.
It seems that way.
This is incredible. It makes you wonder what other processes in our bodies could be optimized by just tweaking the deuterium levels.
Right, that's what we're trying to figure out.
Well, before we get into all that,
Yeah.
let's take a step back and talk about how we even get this deuterium depleted water.
Okay, yeah,
I mean, if it's the future of health, we need to know how to get our hands on it, right?
absolutely. So how do we get this DDW? Is it like Some super secret science thing?
Yeah, can we just buy it at the store or what?
Well, it's not that simple, unfortunately.
Oh, too bad.
It's not like you can just filter out the deuterium, at least not easily.
Hmm.
But there are ways to make it.
Oh, good.
One way, kind of going back to those old studies, is actually melting snow.
Wait, really? Just melting snow?
Yeah, remember how we talked about how snow naturally has less deuterium?
Yeah, because the deuterium-free water freezes first, right?
Exactly. So if you can get your hands on some clean, unpolluted snow
Okay.
and you melt it carefully,
Yeah.
you can actually make your own DDW.
Wow, so it's like DIY deuterium depleted water.
Kind of.
That's amazing. But, like, I can't just go scoop up some snow from my backyard, right?
Probably not unless you live somewhere super pristine.
Right.
And even then, you have to be careful about how you melt it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that 1966 study we talked about, they had a very specific method.
Well, was it?
They melted the snow in a sealed container so none of the water would evaporate.
Oh, I see.
Because if it evaporates, you lose some of that purity, you know?
Right.
So it's a little bit tricky.
Okay, so maybe not so DIY after all.
Well, you could do it, but it's not exactly easy.
Fair enough.
But the good news is, scientists are working on other ways to make DDW more efficient ways.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, there's things like fractional distillation and electrolysis.
Electrolysis, like splitting water with electricity.
Exactly. And even some really high-tech stuff like laser isotope separation.
Wow, lasers.
Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff.
So it sounds like eventually we might be able to just buy DDW at the store, like any other bottled water.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a possibility.
That's exciting. But in the meantime,
Yeah.
is there anything we can do, like with our diet or something, to naturally reduce our deuterium intake?
That's a good question, and it's something that people are looking into.
Okay.
Some people think that certain foods, like fats, naturally have lower deuterium levels.
Oh, interesting.
So maybe a diet that's higher in fats and lower in carbs could help.
Like the keto diet.
Yeah, something like that.
That makes sense, but is there any evidence to back that up?
Well, it's still early days, but it's an interesting idea.
Yeah, it really is.
And it kind of makes you wonder about those cultures where people live really long lives, like in the Mediterranean or parts of Japan.
Yeah.
Maybe their diets, which are traditionally higher in fats, could play a role.
That's fascinating. So even if we can't easily get DDW right now, there might be things we can do with our food choices to make a difference.
It's possible, yeah.
I love that.
It all comes back to that interconnectedness we were talking about earlier.
Right, how everything is connected.
Exactly.
So we've talked about reducing deuterium.
Yeah.
But what about the opposite? What if we have too much deuterium?
Ah, that's a good question.
Is heavy water actually harmful?
Well, it depends on the dose.
Dose, like how much you drink.
Right.
Okay.
Remember how we said that heavy water slows down those chemical reactions?
Yeah.
Well, if you have too much of it, those reactions can slow down so much that they actually start to cause problems.
Oh, no.
Yeah, especially with things like cell division.
So, like, it could stop our bodies from repairing themselves.
Exactly.
That's scary.
It can be, yeah. And in fact, scientists are actually looking at using heavy water in cancer treatments.
Wait, really?
Yeah, because it can slow down the growth of cancer cells.
Wow. So it's like a double-edged sword.
It really is.
Heavy water, on the one hand, it could be harmful,
Right.
but on the other hand, it could help fight cancer.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It really is. This whole thing is just blowing my mind.
too.
It's like all from this tiny little difference in a hydrogen atom,
I know, right?
and it has all these huge implications for our health.
It really shows you how complex our bodies are.
Yeah, and how even the smallest things can make a big difference.
Absolutely.
So we started with this simple question.
Yeah.
What is deuterium depleted water?
Right.
And now look where we are.
It's amazing what you can uncover when you start digging deeper.
It really is.
It's all about asking questions and being curious.
Exactly.
That's what science is all about.
Well, I'm definitely feeling curious now. So as we wrap up this deep dive into deuterium depleted water,
Yeah.
what are some of the key things you want our listeners to take away? You know, it really makes you think differently about water.
It does, doesn't it?
And like, it's not just this passive thing we drink.
Right.
It's like an active player in our health.
Totally.
And who knew that just messing with, what was it, the deuterium levels?
Yeah, deuterium
Could make such a difference.
It's amazing what a tiny change can do.
Yeah, it's like we're rediscovering water.
It really is, like seeing it with new eyes.
But I bet some people are going to be skeptical about all this.
Oh, for sure.
That sounds pretty out there, you know?
It does, and it's important to be critical.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, don't just believe everything you hear.
Right, do your research.
Exactly. Look for good evidence.
Yeah, from real scientists.
Right, and not just anecdotes or testimonials.
So, like, be your own scientist.
Exactly. Question everything.
Demand evidence.
Don't just jump on the bandwagon.
Right, and especially if you're thinking about trying this DDW stuff,
Yeah,
talk to your doctor first.
always a good idea.
It's your health, you know?
Absolutely.
Well, this has been a wild ride.
It has.
From isotopes to, like, the future of health.
And even cancer treatment.
Yeah, who would have thought?
It's amazing what we're learning.
I still have a ton of questions.
Me too, and that's the best part.
It is. It's like the more we learn, the more we realize we don't know.
That's science for you.
Always more to discover.
And that's exciting.
It really is. So, to everyone listening out there,
Yeah.
keep asking those questions
Is it curious?
and keep on exploring.
Absolutely.
We'll catch you on our next deep dive.